Hello and welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show where we debate takes so hot that they'd melt a planet with twin suns. My name is Brody, and this week I'm joined by my co hosts Amanda and Christian as we attempt to discover what story is truly the best from a galaxy far, far away. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. By the end of this episode, we'll have a definitive answer on where this piece of Star Wars content ranks amongst the rest. What an episode.
Woo!
an
A lot
episode.
happened.
I mean, wow. There's so much we have to talk about. I'm so excited to discuss the mines.
It's just episode 2, and we're already like so much content. Like the real meat and potatoes of this season
Yeah.
is already out. The
No
gate.
fillers.
No fillers whatsoever.
Yeah.
None at all. I mean, wow. Off to the races. We have a guest on tonight who mentioned, hey, they're staying on track. This is really crazy. What an awesome, the way the show is pacing. So speaking of that, really excited to bring on our guest tonight. He is one of the hosts of the Die Out of the Force podcast, puts a lot of great content on TikTok for those who love Star Wars and really just out there with going to Star Wars Celebration and putting out a lot of great stuff for Star Wars fans to consume online. So be sure to help us greet with a warm welcome, Element 7. Element, how are you doing today,
Woo.
sir? I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm doing well. How about you guys?
We are great.
Good.
We're so
Good to
glad
see
to
you.
have you. This is like such a lore heavy episode, and we're so glad to have a lore master
Yes,
like you
we
on our
need you.
side.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. I actually had myself on mute so that I didn't speak friend and enter.
Yes.
Yes.
He gets it. He gets it.
I do want to say, and I was like, Element in his contract, he did say, we wrote in, we'll get him visually, but we're not getting his voice.
Have
Like
to
we
pay
couldn't
premium
afford
for
that
that.
much. Yeah, couldn't get that much. Now, I'm really excited to have you on because I really enjoy Star Wars, but I am a crazy big Tolkien nerd. And I
Oh.
know you're pretty familiar with Tolkien yourself with what you do for a living. So yeah, excited to have you on. You know all about lore. I don't know how much you want to share with our audience, but yeah, you know a thing or two about pieces of content that are really have a lot of lore rooted into them, like this episode of Star Wars.
Yeah. I I'll share as much as I can with whoever wants to learn about it. That's how I got started in the first place. I got my start on TikTok just telling people to shut up because they were complaining a lot. But people started asking questions, and I was like, hey, I can answer these questions. And man, the change from like the zeitgeist from 2-3 years ago to today is amazing. Like now, when people ask questions, I got like a whole maybe list of pages of people who will comment and answer for me. I'm like,
That's so cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
These people are reading books now. They're all into it. I like it.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a
Yeah.
Star Wars fan.
Read the books. It's fun.
Get deeper. Into
Christian's
the
read a
story.
few books.
Just a few. Probably not as much as Element 7.
Why don't you write a Star Wars book, Christian?
Oh, you guys wouldn't want that.
I would want that. I'd be very interested. I mean, we have very different takes on Star Wars as of every single episode right now,
do.
so I probably wouldn't like your book.
You would like
But I'd
burn my
support you.
book.
You put it
I
on
would
AO3.
Yeah,
There you go.
there you go, man.
Here we go.
I'd buy it. I'd support it.
Oh, thanks, man.
I wouldn't like it,
Yeah.
but I like you.
But speaking of writing, Amanda wrote a summary.
I
For this
did.
one.
Ooh, look at
Yeah,
that transition. You're getting
okay.
good at those.
You know, this
You're getting
summary
good at those.
This summary was really hard to write because wow, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So first, Din and Grogu stop to visit their good friend Pelimoto, seeking a replacement memory circuit for IG-11. With none at hand, she gives the duo R5 to take with them as they seek out the mines of Mandalore. Din has R5 go seek out the safety of the air, and when R5 goes missing, Din goes out to see for himself. As Din and Grogu make their way to the bottom of the mines, Din gets captured by a spider-like bionicle who disarms and traps him. He orders Grogu to find Bo-Katan and bring her back to help him. Bo-Katan defeats the Bionicle using the Darksaber and helps aid Din on the next part of his quest, finding the mythical living waters of Mandalore.
So one thing I need to say, I was totally joking when I told you it was called a Bionicle when you were writing that.
No, I think it is called that.
You know, a Bionicles. It's
The
It's canon
cyborg.
now.
It's
yeah.
canon now.
What is
I don't know what it's called. It might be called a Bionicle. I don't know,
We're-
but it reminded me of a Bionicle, so that's what I said.
One great summary. You nailed
You
it.
did
thank
nail
you.
it.
I was sweating.
The-
You nailed the transition. You nailed the summary.
It was, and I like Element 7's take on this, but the cyborg droid predator, that was awesome to see. A great steampunk feel, and like I was telling both of them before that it really reminded me. I was getting the Frenzy Decepticon from Transformers, like the little guy, like with the game. I was getting that guy like vibes from him, and obviously kind of like a Grievous, but I don't know if we've seen much of anything like that in Star Wars before. It's just fresh,
Yeah.
cool, interesting.
Creepy.
Wow. And there was a good mix of fresh, a good mix of like some of the old. We have R5
Yeah,
back in this episode.
bring
And
him back.
I was watching a behind the scenes of this where Dave Filoni really made sure there was like oil streaks on the part of the gasket up top that blew and from episode 4. And he's like, well, why wouldn't he still be on Tatooine? Like that's the last time we
He's
saw him.
gotta
So,
be there.
so really the attention to detail on some of those old things as well. And Naboo Starfighter, where the alphabet was written in whatever that Naboo language is. Super cool. Just super cool attention to detail on some of the old stuff we've seen.
And Pelimoto speaking straight Jawa.
Ripping people
Oh,
off.
It's funny all the
Almost
time.
in a perfect accent. I like to point out.
Yes. She was perfect.
No
Just
teeth.
great
keeping-
accent.
Keeping
Just rolled
continuity.
right into it.
Missing
It's so
that.
perfect if you close your eyes, you think that's one of the Jawas speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
That's what I thought during
Maybe she
during the
voiced
live
them.
reaction.
She probably could have. I'd like to mention we had got Leia's Only Hope in the chat. Chiming
Yeah.
in.
And we got a new well, okay, maybe it's not a new holiday, but Boonta Eve is what they were celebrating on Tatooine.
Phantom
Yes,
Menace.
great call.
that's
yes,
right,
it was
yes.
a great callback to it. It's like, oh right, so X amount of years before we had, the events of Phantom Menace.
And you see them like, doing the little pod racing around the town, which was so
Man,
cool.
how great would it have been if like during that cold open shot, you just heard the zit, 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 zit.
Right?
Yes.
Oh.
He's still racing.
Ooh. Ah. Ooh. Ah. Ooh.
There goes Quadranero's power coupling.
Oh, I would have died. I was kind of hoping he actually stayed on Tatooine. I was like, get off Tatooine. They said Boonta Eve. I'm like, stay a little while. Have a
We
drink.
gotta see this.
Let's just
And
see
also
the
like
race.
no Boba or Fennec in sight. Are they just like not part of the festivities?
Yeah, that was and I was actually talking to someone today. I'm like, we went to Tatooine and no Boba, and the guy was like, thank the Lord. And I was
That's a good
Aw.
point.
so hurt.
Yeah.
I
I
was
think
so
that
hurt.
I think the contract is Din can go on Boba's show and Boba can't go on Din's show.
We'll
Right?
see.
We'll
see.
see.
We got a lot
We'll
more
see.
season to go.
I can't wait because they're gonna announce Book of Boba Fett season 2 this
No,
season.
they're
I'm
not.
feeling it. I just know it's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
gotta happen. It's gotta happen. What else has gotta happen this season? Well, we're gonna see more Mythosaur.
I mean, we're already crossing
You
off
said the
big
M word.
things.
I said the M word. We saw the M word.
We did.
I didn't think that would happen,
Really?
especially so soon.
When the episode started, especially with like the pre-cap
Where they mentioned the
where they
Mythosaur,
mentioned it, I was like,
"Oh,
no way.
you said it."
No way. But I was like, the whole time we're going for, I'm like, I think they're gonna do it. Right at the end, I think they're gonna do it. And it was epic.
Yeah, I couldn't
Oh.
believe it.
I was impressed that I love that this episode you get to see Din. He's been kind of doing this in the last couple episodes where you see him really teaching Grogu like he is his son.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's like, okay, you see how the ship works, and we were here and now we're going there. And it's set up for Grogu to be sort of like the lead character in this moment. And I loved it.
Yeah.
He did so well.
I like you pointed that out. I saw him for the first time really as a Mandalorian Grogu. I just kinda like,
Yeah.
it really
yeah.
kind of set it in my mind when he was talking to him like that.
Yeah,
But
because he was like, as a Mandalorian, we like need to do
navigate,
this.
and I
And
like
then-
the layout of the system.
And then
Yeah.
Bo-Katan was also, passing down the stories of like her time on this planet. And yeah, it was just really touching. I was impressed. Grogu, lead actor.
And let's also go ahead, Element. You're gonna say something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that those are what I like to call exposition Din and exposition Bo.
Mm.
If Grogu's not there, they're just speaking to the air.
Yep.
So in most cases, Grogu is a stand-in for the audience.
I was thinking
Give us
that
the lore bits,
Yeah, because they haven't, especially if you haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, you're getting introduced to Bo-Katan like really deeply for the first time. And I felt like I was getting to know a whole new piece of her too. Just seeing her come to life on screen. Katie Sackhoff is just continues to blow me away every episode. Even when she sees the N1 starfighter coming back and she's like, nah, we got to tell this dude to get out of here. And
For
she's
the
like, oh no, it's
last
the
time.
baby. Where's your daddy?
Yeah, so
And then
great.
she's like, mommy's here.
She was great.
And yeah, and her talking. I mean, Katie Sackhoff just killed. I think for me, this is the best Bo-Katan we've ever had. Goes back to this
Same here.
planet, and
Yeah.
it's just I get this Mines of Moria feel where she's gonna see her homeworld and everything. She's like, it didn't always look like this, and she goes and boom, everything's just waylaid by the enemy or whatever, and they go deeper and deeper into the bowels of the mines, and instead of waiting for there is a big old Balrog, it's a mythosaur.
Yeah.
So the whole time that's what I was thinking. But yeah, she's explaining to Grogu about her experiences with the Jedi and asking about how powerful he is with the Force, and it was just cool. It was cool to see that, but also just to see with herself. They talked about in this last episode. Well, Mando. They referred to him as an apostate in the Book of Boba Fett, and that's what they're talking about now as well. But it's kind of her state as well. Whereas he was exiled, she's on the other state of being an apostate, where she's kind of willfully walking.
Mhm.
All of this stuff is just a big show. None of it's real, and she's encountering this person. Maybe she never really believed like that. It kind of reminds you of someone of some sort of faith, where this person was kind of brought up in this religion and on one side and saw all the, maybe the inner workings of everything and isn't super bought in, but gets it's there. It has its purpose, whatever. And she meets someone else who's wholeheartedly just has so much faith, and it's kind of restoring that for her. And then that was one of those have to see it to believe it type events with the mythosaur by the end.
Mhm.
And it's kind of really getting her to where he's starting to see her side of things. She's also getting to see his, and kind of have that character growth on her end. So it's just really cool to see how they fit that in. There's probably not a whole lot of dialogue this episode, but I feel like you really connect with her as a character with what she does say. So
You could almost say that they are like a dyad.
Ho, ho, ho.
I mean,
Almost.
and the way that Bo-Katan was really watching Din, like she's obviously super skeptical, but as she is back on her home planet for the first time in who knows how long, you get the sense of how much she's really missed it. She has this fond smile on her face, remembering back to what it was. And even as she takes him to the living water, she's like, let me read you this plaque about this fun little mythical story that dates back far beyond any of us. And I thought it was hilarious that he kept his armor on when he went in there. I was like, dude, you got to take some of that off. I thought
Yeah.
that was obvious.
I thought that's what was gonna happen.
me too.
And I was like,
just gonna
what?
have a shirtless, but
Yeah,
just
I
the
was like,
helmet
let's
on.
I thought we
go.
were going to get a Mando butt shot. I thought it was happening today.
I called it out. I was like, he's got to get naked. But then he did the opposite. He just
Yeah.
kept everything on.
But not his cloak.
Yeah.
No capes. No capes in the water.
No
Yeah.
jetpacks.
No jetpacks. No guns. Everything
No
else.
capes.
No
capes.
capes.
But yeah, so you kind of get the impression when he's walking out there into the lake, you see her look at him in this very fond way. It feels like maybe they're trying to hint at a love story. And I, for one, Star Wars has always been a love story and has always had romance in it. So I am pro romance in Star Wars. I think that this obviously needs more
Fleshing
simmer, sure. But I was getting that feeling, and I think she was just really inspired by his faith and like really him like living and walking the past of Mandalore that she remembers, like her father being like the leader of.
Yeah, those are the exact words I was using, like inspired. She admires and has like a newfound respect for that. And I think that's, huge for Bo-Katan there. And it was awesome to see her wielding the dark saber.
Yeah, she did that like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
She connected with that Kyber crystal.
Well, it's not her first time.
Nope.
Listen, it's hard to think that Bo-Katan would lose to Moff Gideon after seeing that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people know this, but Bo-Katan is several levels above Din in fighting experience and prowess. And the moment I saw her wielding the darksaber, it's one of those moments where you're like, Night of 1,000 Tears, a bomb dropped right next to her. She dropped it. Ain't no way Moff Gideon won it in fair combat. And so, it's impossible.
Man. Well, since you know so much about this and you've got so much rich lore backing up that take and just that knowledge going into it, Boba Fett would totally take out Bo-Katan, though, right? Like that's a given. That's a given. I mean, he's based on a guy who murdered Jedi with his bare hands. So, like,
well, I mean, Bo-Katan's not a Jedi.
No,
Bo-Katan has been trained, in everything that Din and Boba has been trained in. Theoretically, in more ways, because Boba was not raised in the culture. He was trained by his dad. Bo-Katan was raised in House Vizsla, and then into Death Watch. So you can imagine the type of warriors that are within her proximity and who's training her. I think if we were to talk about the Mandalorians in existence today, the only person that would probably go one toe to toe with Bo-Katan, like realistically and narratively, would be the Armorer.
Oh,
and that's a fight
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, no kidding.
That kind of like plays into my mind of how the Armorer dies. Like, because we talked about the prediction of the Armorer dying, and you'd have this very like Orthodox Creed way, and Bo-Katan not, and there's a showdown. One has to be the victor.
There's a tag team in the future, I believe, because Din represents the spirituality of Mandalore, and Bo-Katan represents, like, I guess the tradition of it.
Yeah,
she comes from a background where she was a princess, and everything she did was for duty, and that is what kind of desensitized her to the mysticism of it all. And she's like, I recited all of these creeds for all of our subjects. And Din represents the spirituality, whereas Paz Vizsla is all about basically what Bo-Katan is, but, like, entitlement and power in the name of House Vizsla, but has no real solid foundation that Din has in terms of respecting the spirituality. And the Armorer is the same thing with Bo-Katan. It's like she's got the history and the traditions, but it's kind of like a splintered version of it because they were cloistered. And so I feel like Din and Bo-Katan will go up against the Armorer and Paz. They get a rematch. Paz versus Din. Din will finally know how to use a darksaber with the help of Bo-Katan and Sabine.
Ooh,
Yo.
Sabine.
That would be so awesome.
We're hoping to see that too.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I mean, already it seems like we've seen all of the clips from the trailer.
Yeah, well, didn't they also had the Dr. Pershing on Coruscant, it looks like.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some Coruscant stuff, I think. But yeah, like
we've seen most of the big stuff.
Yeah, I feel like
the trailer.
This episode was definitely like the poster child of the trailer.
Yeah,
a lot of from the trailer was from
and
here.
on the physical posters.
Yeah, yep. And but it was, so it's cool to see that was towards the front end of this debut of this show.
Yeah, so clearly they have a story that they need to be moving on. And we were talking about this a little bit before we went live, about how first and second season were just a lot more side questy. Like this whole episode could have very easily been like, oh, they didn't have the part for IG-11, so like that becomes like the main quest of the episode. I still don't like that that's a plot device. Like, still not, like, I don't think we should be wasting time trying to find a memory circuit for IG-11. His argument to Pelimoto was that he needs its machinery to like test the air and stuff. R5 can do that. Any droid can do that. Just like make it.
For spelunking.
Yeah.
I think I think that's kind of like a misdirect. I think R5 is there now.
It's gonna be like the replacement.
I thought that
makes more sense.
And I really, that's what I love about new Star Wars content that utilizes the old and familiar in a purposeful, fun way. When they take back R5, like it was really cool seeing R5 in, what was it, season 2 when we first?
Yeah.
And like that was awesome and great fan service. But now it's rewarding to see it now even more so.
And like Grogu was clearly attached.
Yeah.
You know, I think we got some really great. Okay, one of our bingo predictions was Grogu says his first word.
I went back and I listened.
Yeah.
I went back and I listened.
Did he?
It definitely sounds like he just kept doing baby
Goo Goo
talk.
Gaga.
But it was
All
funny
episode.
that she said, "Oh, that was his first word."
I think they're
it's funny
hinting.
that she
I
said
know,
it
because like,
we were
bingo.
like, yeah,
I feel like they're hinting
doesn't
like
count.
it's a bigger, like there's gonna be a bigger reveal.
Yeah.
He's gonna be like,
Dad, or
like something.
But this
Mando.
was definitely the most dialogue he's had.
He's
gonna
so
talk
far.
this season.
Yeah, he's getting new sounds.
Yeah.
that he's making.
Yep. Sputters.
He's also more emotive too.
He
Yes.
is. Yes.
He's frowning a lot, and he
Oh my gosh, he was
misses Din a
so
lot.
scared, and like the way his ears
like a
went
dog.
down. I know.
Yeah, his eyes
Little
are
puppy.
big.
I gotta
So-
say, it's commitment on the story group's part to take a line from A New Hope and totally turn it into character development for R5. Because if you think about the line from A New Hope, he's got a bad motivator,
Yeah.
and then now R5 is the astromech who's just unmotivated.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's been a while. I like the did you read the Certain Point of View 40th anniversary of A New Hope, and they have the chapter short story on R5? I don't remember like the full details of the story.
Admittedly, haven't. I did read a lot of stories in that book though.
Yeah, there are some like great ones, but like I don't remember the exacts of R5 stuff, but it's really his time to shine now.
Nice.
I'm excited. I'm excited for R5. He's cool character. This is his chance. He's the comeback kid, comeback droid. Real excited to see where his story goes.
I feel like we haven't talked enough though about. I kept on calling it the Bionicle, but whatever that like we've never
cool.
seen that on screen before.
Yeah,
like
cyborg Bionicle.
I mean,
MODOK.
yeah, like Grievous is such a unique character. It almost like doesn't feel Star Warsy enough. So it was a good like reminder that is Star Wars, and it kind of had this creepy alien type of fear around it too.
I was getting like alien Matrix vibes, like the
mixed with like a
drone.
Dalek from Doctor Who with
yeah.
the eye. I'm like, that's what this thing is.
And just like the draining of Din's blood was just the icing on the cake.
Yes, totally.
I feel like the Alamites are like that kind of species on the planet that is indigenous to Mandalore.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that creature, that horseshoe crab looking thing, is an Alamite. It's my version of like a caster or a defiler. So like they have their warriors that stay on the outskirts and attack people in the caves. and then they have their shaman and their people who are experimenting on people's blood. I think that is an Alamite as well, but there's
Interesting.
no way to be certain. Otherwise, yeah, it's a funny little cybernetic that is just sits there waiting for people to pick up helmets.
Yeah, I guess.
I was
I
fir-
wonder how long he's been waiting.
First time I've jumped in
Yeah,
watching
it
The
was a
Mandalorian
jumper.
ever. The Alamites too, they reminded me a lot of, there's like these villains from this 1960 movie called The Time Machine, where it looks pretty similar as these pasty troll-like looking things that live underground and snatch people up who, you know, are unwittingly just falling into their grasp. And so I it wouldn't surprise me if those characters are based off that, because there's all the homages they pay to old sci-fi films and in these shows. But yeah, super cool. They were also kind of creepy. I loved how Din kind of walks in. You're speaking to how many levels above Bo-Katan is over Din, and I thought it was really interesting how Din just walks into a trap, where she kind of walks and stops and like points it out and
Mhm.
shoots
And
before.
and the way she like pushes him out of the way
Yeah.
so slowly.
Yeah, I
She's
mean,
a pro.
as a voice
This
actress,
is
I was
Totally.
her domain.
Yeah. No, I had to look her up 'cause she's done a lot of other physical acting work too, which I was surprised with, but a lot of other performances where she's had to be in really cut athletic shape. So, I mean, it's just like a
Oh,
match made in
Starbuck.
heaven.
She's always Starbuck to me.
It's just awesome.
From what?
Battlestar Galactica.
Oh.
Yeah.
Boom.
She's fantastic, and I'm just so happy they got her as a voice actress, because yeah, she's gonna be great. I do want to ask one before we move on. I want to ask about a prediction real quick. I'd love to hear what you think, Element, on this. I've said this for a while now, but I feel like the tone of The Mandalorian as a whole, the Mandoverse they're building out, they're kind of redefining right now what is a Mandalorian. And I think you're going to have these misfit Mandalorians like Bo-Katan, who's the failure, Din Djarin, who's this religious zealot, Boba Fett, who's not even really a Mandalorian.
He doesn't
and
even
something-
claim to be a man.
he doesn't even
Yeah.
claim to be one. But right now he's kind of like, well, I'm not cut out for being this sheriff thing or this, being a mayor. So I guess, what do I do next? I feel like you're going to take this group of misfits, redefine what really is a Mandalorian. And again, Boba's dad fought in those civil wars. So there's something there. There's got to be something there
Mhm.
where he'd have some sort of pride behind it. But most people have kind of given up to this point. Heck, Bo-Katan didn't even ever go back to test the air
Yeah, she was just like
all this
he's-
time. So I think we're going to lead back to all of them going back to like restore Mandalore and who's going to oppose them. But I think they're going to take this Thanos approach and introduce him way later, like in the Ahsoka series, but have Thrawn be the big baddie, where he too would like to go back to Mandalore, as we saw in Rebels, where they wanted Beskar armor. But I think now, with their really actively working to build the First Order right now, imagine them saying, okay, let's try this again. The First Order is already building on the outer rim, which Mandalore is on. So go back there. No one really knows about it. No one's checking out Mandalore at all. The mines have been revisited. Go get Beskar armor. Give it to the new stormtroopers of the First Order. That's the mission, the battle for Mandalore. And I think maybe the
Ooh.
ultimate demise of Thrawn is what's waiting at the end of it.
Ooh.
So that's
It's interesting.
if it doesn't happen that way, I'm putting this out in the universe because Jon Favreau, y'all. I mean, that's beautiful.
You think he's gonna
listening,
start
he's watching.
rewriting?
Mandalorians, assemble! Bum bum.
I think
bum,
I think I think it's very likely something like that will happen because the fangs or the gauntlets are in the Battle of Exegol, and so they have to have had some sort of involvement with the New Republic in a way there where they would answer the call, back then. So I don't know what will happen, but that sounds very very likely because I do believe that narratively there is a direction where they do have to unite. They have to put aside their differences, and whether that comes out of like a duel between the armor, Bo-Katan, Paz, and Din. I think the outcome of that is more likely to be them united and a new kind of Mandalore. I mean, we already went through a new Mandalorian with Satine, which I have to say, you gotta be real pieces of work to come so close to saying Satine without saying Satine like 500 times.
Yeah.
We got
No,
the
not
father.
a single mention.
We didn't
Yeah.
get Satine.
Ugh.
Yeah. She's coming
Okay,
this
but
season.
Element,
She's got to be coming.
I do want your opinion on, in the first episode, we see another sort of baptism happening that the armor is doing for like a new youngling. And I just wanted maybe your thoughts on where are they still recruiting people from? It felt like we left off season 2 with like a lot of the Mandalorian are gone and there's like a lot more are dead, and now all of a sudden there's like a big clan that the armor has around, and they all have very different colors on, so it seems like they're coming from different places. How are they recruiting people?
That's a good question. I think they have a lot of subscribers to the faith from every house and every clan. And I think they're all doing kind of their own proselytizing across the galaxy. And to be fair, this is at a time where the Republic is rebuilding, and you've still got many parts of the galaxy suffering from the aftermath of the Civil War. And still suffering from the aftermath of just the Empire. So even with Din's world being attacked by separatists, you would have worlds that were attacked by the Empire and continue to be attacked by the remnants after the war is over. So I think there's still a lot of people who were orphaned or left just to fend for themselves, and there's a lot of people to be found. And so if you have a whole bunch of Mandalorian clans just kind of disparate and out there in the galaxy looking around, they'll find some people, and then they'll get their foundlings.
Yeah. That's so. And speaking to that too, talking about foundlings and Concordia, we got Concordia live action
from
afar. To a degree, from afar.
We
got to see it.
Doesn't fit the bingo card. He didn't visit it, but he saw it, but it explained a lot. I mean, about his backstory, knowing he's from there. It kind of helps make sense. Like, okay, so what was it, Death Watch or whatever? Like, it makes sense why they were fighting separatists there, because obviously they aligned with Dooku until Dooku kind of broke ties with them, and so this battle presumably taking place after those events. And so it's just interesting to see, like, okay, there's to kind of lump him into a certain place in Star Wars history. It's cool. It's cool. It adds a lot more to him, I feel like.
And to get back to like the whole foundlings subject of like the armor and her clan of, I kind of see them as, sure, maybe recruiting, but also in Din's case, rescuing some people. Like, it's easy for us to kind of like start painting people in like corners of like, oh, these are the extreme people that are bad, and Bo-Katan's more of like the kind of like broken away but free spirit of this, and Din is like pegged in this corner. And they do have their factions, but I think we can point out certain goods in each one of the factions, and like, because we're all kind of gearing at or trying to unite them. And it's like, you want to unite, the good in the people. And I kind of like see that as maybe they rescued that foundling. Maybe not, but who knows? But yeah, it's like, if you're trying to unite people, we're trying to rally behind a cause or a shared value, and that being the community of Mandalore. And so it is interesting to explore, but I think that's what makes The Mandalorian, like, as a wholesome, great show, just rallying behind that theme of like, and what George Lucas kind of brought with Star Wars too, is like religion, and like getting to exploring these different beliefs and values of people, but identifying the shared values. So like what really matters, So I think when you can tap into that, that's pretty awesome.
I gotta say, with this episode had a lot. This is one of the first times we've ever gone this far into our review, and we've not once, we're actually over time now, and for this part of the show we haven't talked about our rating at all.
Yeah,
There's so much
What are the numbers?
What are the numbers? Okay, So real quick, Amanda gave it a 76%. Ouch.
Come on, man. It's a
You-
good,
Of course,
solid
still
score.
passing.
So
It's
yeah,
a solid
barely
score.
passing, but you got there. 78% for Christian, and an 88.8% from myself. So
Well, what's the lowest scoring category?
the lowest scoring category is, it looks like it's the music.
The music.
Yeah,
And I think that's where nothing terrible about
followed
the
by
music,
the story.
but it wasn't relying on the music here. The music served its purpose, and it kind of like hid in the background because there are a lot of quiet
Yeah, totally.
moments and like it's suspenseful and whatnot.
And that's what helped it with a
Yeah.
lack of music and
It helped in that way. So we're kind of saying the lack of music helped this episode. Turn right to go
And-
left.
And the immersive universe scored the highest,
Well, yeah,
as you would expect.
Very high.
Yep.
I mean, you had a dang mythosaur.
And for new listeners, we do break down the story, the characters, technical aspects, music, and immersive universe, each one getting 1 to 5 points, 1 to 5 stars, comprising with our, everything can get a total of, 100 points or 100 stars. So yes, it's totaled out to 80.93%. I feel like,
Cumulative, yes.
I feel like that's a solid.
Yeah.
High scoring for any like individual episode, for any serialized
To
episode.
break
That's-
80, that's a
that's-
big deal.
That's a special thing here at Duel of the Rings. And the words of K2SO, that's high. Very high.
Yeah. It's like we don't have many things. We do have pretty high standards. I don't think there's any single episode for us that's ever past 90 even, because there's only like 3 movies for us that have. And so we hold everything to that standard. Looks like Andor was 89.73, so that one's up there. Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 5, 88.4. Mandalorian Chapter 9, The Marshal, 88.27. So it's hard. Not many things. It looks like this one would fall number 14 from all the shows
All of the shows
ever that
Still
we've gone
great.
through.
A lot of Andor in that first 15, like the whole series, pretty much.
Yeah, there's that was just like, I
That
think
was a gem.
we had Dar Chaco on last week who brought up, he's just like, well, you got to think of Andor as, because I was kind of railing last week's episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, I kind of was talking about his paint by numbers and everything, and he's like, think of Andor as like this great steak. He's like, you don't need it all the time, but when you do, it's really, really special. He's like, Mandalorian, it's more like a good burrito or like a hot dog or a burger. And he's like, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need, like, I get that, but that's fine. Like, that food's okay. And I kid you not, the next 3 days, I went to Costco and I had a hot dog. I made homemade burgers. And then I went to a friend's house and they had burritos. And I was just like, and everything was
Just eating the
fantastic.
There's a
Mandalorian.
time and place for all of
It was,
those.
yeah. And every single time, like, the hot dog came in clutch because I didn't have time for lunch.
Right.
And then that burger was the best burger I ever made myself. And then the tacos were fantastic. I'm like, you know what, Dark Taco, if you're ever listening to this episode, you were right. Mandalorian is just, it's just
Comfort
it's,
food.
it's just, yeah, it's just,
It's
it's not that it's
great
better
comfort
than the
food.
steak, but man, is it really good.
Yeah.
We talk about food and Star Wars a lot now on this show.
I like food
Yeah.
a lot. I'm really
Yeah,
hungry after these episodes.
It's a good vessel for analogies, basically.
Absolutely.
To kind of extend the analogy, it's like these shows aren't competing with each other.
Yeah.
They all serve
have to
a different
remember that.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're painting the
And, you know,
mosaic of Star Wars.
When Young Jedi Adventures airs, I'm gonna watch it. I'm not a kindergartner, but I'm gonna watch it, and it's gonna serve the purpose of like, hey, I want to see some Padawans learning from Yoda in the High
Yeah.
Republic.
Oh yeah.
It'll be so cute.
Yeah, that is super
Absolutely.
cool.
I forgot the name of the fur ball, but the
Gunji?
little blue one with
Oh,
the
It's a new character.
hanging
I can't
fangs.
remember.
I'm totally
Nubs,
blank. Which one?
Nubs.
Oh.
Yeah,
Iconic
I mean,
already.
so like Mandalorian has this kind of Star Wars camp with it, and Andor is for those like intellectuals, right?
Yeah.
can
For
li-
like
you
the
can-
deep fan.
Mm-hmm. You can watch both, and they'll be the best show ever to you for both reasons, right? So like, what would I rate Andor on the camp scale? Really low, but it didn't need that. It didn't. That's not what it was for. Mandalorian rates like almost number 1 for camp scale. So it's kind of like, when you guys break down into categories for your rating system, it's like these shows are the best for what they are intending to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So well put. And that talk about that diversity of content. It's just so awesome to have that based on whatever you're really looking for that day. Star Wars isn't
Mhm.
a specific vibe anymore. It's not reaching a specific really it's kind of like the Amazon now of just this form of entertainment where it's like we've got these kinds of shows and these kinds of shows and whatever you really need,
Oh,
we've got something for you.
It's going to explore every tone. We've got space opera, space western, espionage with Andor, and a space western with Mando. Like, just
We need more.
we're
still
gonna explore
need
all
that
the tones.
tri-camera comedy.
Yep, we're going to get
I've
it.
been
Oh,
That's
I thought you were
waiting.
gonna yeah. Oh no.
I've been
It'll
waiting for
eventually
the
happen.
Boba and Fennec retired sitcom of them just being like, "Honey, where's my newspaper?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I think those dang kids grabbed it." And Boba's gonna be like, "All right, I'm gonna go get
Let
the
me get my
freaking
gaffer stick.
yes."
Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a bounty. Somebody will get you.
Exactly. That's the one
Wow.
tone we're missing.
Yeah. We'll
You've
get
thought
it.
of that theme a lot.
I've just talked to Amanda about it many times,
Yeah,
and
I
I've
keep pitching it.
tried to dissuade her. This is not at
Oh, no,
all
it's
what
great.
we need. No, that's not how I want to see Boba. No, don't come back that way, Boba. Please.
Boba, perfect
We'll
casting
do
for that.
we'll do Hondo.
Ah,
Yeah.
We could.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
Okay, you got me there.
down.
I
I'm
just
so
got
down with
home
that.
from work and I smelled profit.
Yes, I will watch that show. No problems whatsoever. So what do you think of our rating? Element 80.93. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are we off basis? What are you thinking?
I could never think anyone who is sharing an opinion is off basis. I'll just disagree and go 95%, but I'm a lore guy. Like,
Nice.
there's two things that Star Wars is missing heavily on in canon: Sith, Mandalore,
Yeah.
and I use Mandalore,
Amanda.
Yeah.
Lore.
Yep.
You're
and
my
we
kind of
got
guy.
that. We got that, and so like, whenever we get an episode that's just lore heavy and exposition heavy, I don't care about all of the other categories. I'm
Yes.
like writing in my lore Bible, just like,
Mhm.
Yes.
just updating everything, and it's just great.
Yeah.
I didn't need it to be anything else. But I did appreciate, and we talked about this earlier. I did appreciate how we just stayed on track. I was expecting, as soon as I said go get Bo-Katan, we were gonna go back to Boonta Eve and see Boonta Eve, but we didn't. So that was highly valuable, in terms of rating.
Yeah.
You teased it, but we were able to kind of go on and do different things. So much fun.
Yeah.
Star Wars is in such a good spot right now.
It's gonna pay off.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
I'm
I think in the
excited.
next episode, like when Bo-Katan and Din are doing their thing, we're gonna shift. Bo-Katan's gonna be like, "Oh, so you need training with the Darksaber? Let me call my good friend Sabine." And Sabine's on Tatooine, just watching the
Mm.
Boonta Eve
Well,
classic.
Bo-Katan is now, she has to be a believer.
Yeah.
Like, she saw it with her own eyes. So she's going to have a character change in the next episode. I'm excited
Stuff
for
was
that.
shaking.
I don't think it was necessarily a belief and not belief for Bo-Katan. I think she was just it's those non-practicing Christians. It's just kind of like they grew up in it, and it's just like
Sure.
whatever at this point, It's like I get it. I've done all of this, and Din is the person that hasn't seen anything, so his the awe and the wonder behind the mysticism is just accelerated and multiplied for him. And I think it's rekindled in her. I think she finally, I don't even think she, just to seeing the mythosaur, I don't think Bo-Katan finally believes that the waters are magical. But seeing the mythosaur and seeing like a degree of truth behind the history of their culture means she can appreciate it that much more, or respect it.
Yeah, it certainly breaks walls for her to be more open to like what
Yeah.
else have I been shutting off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some very cool parallels to draw from it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then speak on that religious front, I just learned today that glass shard that Mando's walking around with is actually directly translates to a passage from Exodus, which is really interesting.
Oh, they
Basically,
showed the Mando on that one.
yeah, I didn't even know until today where they're just like, yeah, it's Exodus 10:5-6. And for folks who don't know about that book of the Bible, well, the Israelites are captives in Egypt and they're not in their homeland, and they have this figure in Moses who comes out, who's delivering the word of God and says, hey, let my people go, and they forcibly go home through a whole series of events and different plagues and things that happen to Egyptians. They all leave and he leads them back to the promised land. So really interesting to see, the form of the baptism that we had with the little boy that was cut short with the big creature last time, and then he's getting ready to baptize himself again. A very religious tone in comparison to those samurai tones we had, or Western tones we had in the first two seasons of Mando. He's going in to be baptized himself, and again, another big creature comes in and cuts it off before he can finish what they're getting ready to say. I don't know. I want to say the first one's an oath. This one's more of kind of a recommitment or a rebaptism to what he believed. And again, something cut it off before he was actually able to finish what he was saying. Another big animal. So something with that. And it just piques your curiosity.
Yeah.
You're like, this is super, super cool. Love the tone they're taking this season. And I don't know. I can't tell you last time I've been this excited for Mandalorian.
It's a great parallel because, in Legends, the Tong originally came from Notron, or what they called Coruscant. What they call Coruscant in Legends back then. But the Tong were kind of exiled because of the humans, and they had to find the promised land. And when they landed on this planet and found the Mythosaur, it became like this huge kind of sanctuary savior moment. So when they first tamed the Mythosaur, that's when it became the thing for them, and they created this whole culture around the Mythosaur, and that's when they became the Mandalorians. So that passage, very, very, the parallel with the Exodus is super neat. I like that.
Yeah.
But Bo Karen.
Bo Karen. Oh man, that's the first time I've ever heard that. Also, I want to add this episode. I was like, oh, someone said Bo Katan. I'm like, that's the spelling. And then someone immediately right afterwards said, and it was the armor when they did a flashback. Bo Katan.
I know. I
was
saw
like,
that
no.
too. I was like, it can be either or, just like it's Han or Han.
Yeah.
Leah,
Settlers of Bo-Katan.
Yeah, that's what it is now.
Oh, but the baptism. Maybe you guys know, but was he drugged down by,
I think he just sank.
or was it just lead in his boots, or the mysticism of the water, or like what the heck?
I think he just I think it just like the cliff, like the fall off, he just sank like a rock.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought he was kind of pulled down.
Apparently there's some debate about it.
If we look at what they show with Bo-Katan diving, she dives into the water and then goes into a tight tunnel that then opens up into a larger cavern. So I think Din slipped and fell through that hole and then kind of just sunk.
He's there. He is Boba. He's just clumsy, making mistakes when it's his own show.
It seemed like an external, unnatural force. I don't know. Maybe I was reading too far into it.
I mean, there could have been like a vacuum also pulling them down.
Maybe.
As well.
Currents. Next subject for next week's episode, just currents and the science all behind that. And
we've lost any new listeners. Like, oh no, Element's gone. They're going to start talking about nature, rivers. What is the difference between that?
Stalagmites, stalactites, in these things. You got to really find that distinction.
Man, I would love to see an episode of Mando just about tributaries, lakes.
No.
Yeah, that would be so nice.
Different types of rock.
Yeah,
and stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to.
Maybe you should.
Maybe we should go to the next segment.
Ooh, something, yeah, pretty hot, pretty spicy. Hot take segment of the show. Darth Vader, bring us in.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
All right, it is hot takes time, and I've got one. I had one, but we had a conversation today, and I've come up with another one. This is just my personal bias, if you will. Okay, there's no fact behind this, in my opinion. Maybe there is. Maybe there's something factual out there I haven't read yet. But from where I stand as a fanboy, if Bo-Katan and Boba Fett were to ever duke it out, I'm just saying, yeah, Boba Fett would have a couple scratches, but it'd be one of those like, all that for a drop of blood. And Boba Fett would, take her out. So that's my hot take.
I don't think it's that much of a hot take. I think because Chaco and I deal with like the versus community a lot in terms of like who would win in a lightsaber duel. It's not a binary thing. They win or they win. They've fought this person before and won, so therefore
yeah.
vis-a-vis concordantly. Yeah. It's always about the story of the fight and where that person is on that day. And I like to cite Hunter x Hunter. If you're unfamiliar, that's an anime. And this kid is training to fight a much more powerful and older competitor, and their mentor is like, it's never about who's more powerful. It's about where that person is on any given day mentally, because the strongest person in the world can lose to the weakest person in the world on their worst day. And everybody has bad days. So Superman has lost to Batman, but that doesn't mean Batman can take on all of the deities in DC. It's just, that's the situation, that's the story that was told. He was prepared for it. So
yeah, it's like what is Boba Fett and Bo-Katan fighting over?
Yeah, this is just
That's
like in my head,
too.
we're gonna go like super 5-year-old here. You got 2 characters on Super Smash Brothers Star Wars Edition, and that's what this is. One of them is just clearly like, everyone's like, oh, you're gonna use that character, really, Boba?
Kirby.
Okay. Yep, you're going. That's where you're going. Okay, got it. He's using Boba, y'all. Clearly, he can't play the game. That's where I'm leaning. He's just,
if Bo-Katan's using the Darksaber.
No, all right, hold on now. Hold on
Next
now.
level stuff.
Yeah, that's
like I'll give Boba Fett like the bounty hunter tricks of the trade, like fighting dirty, and then I'll give Bo-Katan like the traditional techniques, and it's like the boxer versus the MMA.
Great point.
If this is a boxing match, Bo-Katan wins. If this is an MMA match, Boba wins.
Well, if you also look at their fighting style, like, again, very like, especially the Mando season 2, Tamara Morrison fighting with just brute force, just crushing the helmets of the stormtroopers, whereas Bo-Katan's not really heavy punches by any means. In fact, they're pretty light, but everything's about precision.
Surgical.
And so when she's hitting like that creature or whatever, hits right in the throat with a blade, and everything's fast hits, really, really as you mentioned, technique. And so again, it's kind of like fighting Fox versus Bowser in Smash Bros. Is kind of what I'm thinking of it, where like, yeah, Fox is certainly faster and effective at building up those high points, but if Bowser lands that big hit, she's done.
So I think you answered your own question, and I'm going to say milk toast.
Yeah, I think that's what he says too.
Yeah.
Christian, is that where you're leaning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
that's probably fair. I thought that was something, but it's not.
You fool! Your take is milk toast.
All right. Who's got the next take?
I'll go. You were already kind of talking about this, Amanda. My hot take is Mando and Bo-Katan should get married, and they're a better couple than Rey and Kylo.
You added that she would have been bought in until you added that last piece.
I don't know if that was
Whoa.
if people would have jumped on board for the hot take. I was like, just to further make it a hot
Yeah.
take or provocative.
Yeah.
I think you have to say like better than X.
Yes.
Wow. How do we even start breaking down
This
that
is how
one?
I picture it going down, because we both love these characters and we kind of want to see them both with the Darksaber, but Bo-Katan's great with it. But we don't want to see him fight for the Darksaber, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, no,
what's the workaround?
So just kiss.
Just kiss. Just get married. And it makes for a great dynamic. Like, you have differing beliefs, and so it makes room for like an interesting spicy marriage. You know, you're gonna fight about certain things, how to raise your kids, you know, when you're gonna go to Sunday church or
this guy.
Sabbath or nothing at all or whatever. But you can rally behind the shared value of Mandalore, that church.
I'm going to
And
say it's a
so-
hot take. I'm voting it down.
Okay.
It is a hot take.
Hot dog. I finally got a hot take.
I finally got one.
Unless Element 7 already thought of this and it's milk toast to you.
Leia's only hope wrote in the comments, I want Mando and the lady he meets and helps save the village with in season 1.
I'm with
And
that too.
Oh,
I am
that
also
works
with
too.
that.
That works
The
too.
widow? Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot
Yeah,
about
that
her.
yeah, she's a good contender too. Milk toaster hot take. See, it would be a hot take if I didn't also agree that like everything else is a better love story than Raylo. It's kind of like still
Okay,
better
so
love
that
story
had
was
the
love
opposite
story
effect
that
of what I
never
was going
really
for.
Happened, yeah. You
Slash
know,
that for my hot take.
What do you think, Amanda?
I'm gonna say it's a hot take, and I'm just gonna agree. I'm just gonna be chaotic and agree.
What?
So we have a universe. So there's a tie. So comment section. Let us know what you think. We'll give you a score in a second. Want to see what the comments say. We'll have to lean on the fans
Oh,
here.
Hyper
'cause
Hate Space Hero. Come on, guys.
They said milk toast too. So we'll see. We'll see. But we'll see.
We'll
It was
see.
a good take. It was an
Okay.
interesting take.
Okay, I don't know if I even have a hot take, but I just have like an idea, a suggestion, if you will.
Yeah.
I wish there was like a post-credit scene after every episode of The Mandalorian that's just like some really short, like 30-second clip, and it could be like we jump back to Pelimoto and she just like is in bed with a Jawa or something smoking a cigarette, or like just something like really like this weird little exclamation point at the end of the episode. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so are you primarily going for like the surprising comedic factor?
Yes.
Like not like
Yeah.
serious, epic, whatever.
Yeah, like it could be the end of the episode and a main character just dies and the credits all roll.
Oh,
and it's just
yeah.
like the stupid moment.
You could make it work. Yeah.
I would like to see it.
I'm gonna vote that down too. You really are really just going into this sitcom format.
I like
With
to laugh.
Andor, no. I don't know. I'd have to see it to see what happens, but I
So as
think
it
you could
stands
make
now.
it work. I think you could make it work.
But as it stands right now with this current show,
Maybe not the specific cigarette and Jawa in bed and everything, but I think
down the road, maybe.
Mandalorian has already shown like you can have light comedy in it and it works. They go for light comedy and camp and
It
like
could just be like a forgotten scene,
Yeah.
like when R5 goes down to like meet those, what are they
I
called?
think-
Alamites.
Alamites. I
It
totally
could have
see
been
what you're
like an
saying.
awkward moment, and then that's why Din ends up finding him. there.
Yeah.
You know, like just a weird deleted scene.
Oh yeah, I see it. You can make it work.
All right. So I say no. Christian, is that a yes?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
All right. Element, where do you
Well,
stand?
hot take.
I'll say
I
yes.
don't know if it's a hot
Yeah.
take, but it
He
could work.
agrees.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a simmering take.
Sizzling.
Someone's getting hot.
Oh, simmering, new category.
Oh, a hyperspace hero. Amanda
There
is
you
100
go.
on
All
her
right,
take. Give it to
Amanda.
me.
You got people
Amanda-
agreeing with you.
Yeah. The old Roger. Okay. Element, what is your take? If you got one.
Let's see. I can always go with the Gray Jedi aren't possible. I don't know how hot of a take that is, but I think I'll go with the majority of people who are drawn to the Sith don't know how the Force works.
Oh, can you explain a little bit more?
Well, for the most part, it really depends on why you're drawn to the Sith, but a lot of people think that the light side is a monastic decision. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna be a Buddhist monk and be free of emotion and not eat meat or something. But in actuality, there's the duality exists for the purposes of the narrative where you have the good and the bad. It's fine. We can see in gray all the time. It's necessary for the real world to see in shades, right? But for the purposes of Star Wars, it is essentially a good and bad duality. And when you talk about the Jedi and people who serve the light that aren't the Jedi, most people think that is extreme, and they are drawn to the Sith because they represent the freedom to feel things and the freedom to have emotion. But the reality is the light side is just being normal. The light side is at its core serving life. So us here, you guys sitting there having some dark thoughts here and there, eating meat or doing whatever going on with your life, that's all light side. So you don't have to like extremely go on the opposite end of the spectrum to have your cake and eat it. And so everybody thinks that the light is being a Jedi. So I don't want to be like in an order where like we have to be so controlling of our emotions and our attachments. I'm going to be a Sith, which means you kidnap children and you genocide planets and you spend every hour of the day thinking about conquest and backstabbing people.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to spend every hour of the day thinking about who's going to backstab you, because that's the entirety of the Sith code, right? So yes, our food analogies.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I want to preface for everyone who already doesn't know by listening to this episode, this man knows a lot more about Star Wars than I do. All that to be said, with what I know to this day, I'm down to be educated, but I'm going to disagree.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm in a disagreeable mood today.
Okay.
And no, no, maybe help me understand this then. Because my understanding is that the Jedi, while being normal, it's kind of like they are almost like a recovering addict of some kind. You're allowed to enjoy life, but there's so many things you just have to be void of, like no real intimacy with others, don't form any strong relationships, don't have any of these things that could pull you to the dark side. But those are like, you're saying, the best fruits of life we have to be void of in the pursuit of, I guess in their mind, righteousness or whatever it is. And so that's what makes obviously the pull to the dark side appealing. But my question is, and you're saying the gray couldn't be possible. I don't know why that is. And I'm sure there's a great reason. But to me, it's where it's like, there's got to be something where, these are the best. I mean, again, going on these like religious themes, like a lot of Christians and other like most religions in the world will say, yeah, love is one of these fruits of the spirit. It's this really positive thing. And the Jedi are this one religion where they're like, nope, not that. And the Sith are like, come here. We've got love and a whole lot of other crazy kid killing activities too. I'm like, there's got to be some middle. There's got to be something else.
So there is a middle, which is what the place where the Bendu resides. I'm the one in the middle, the Bendu. It's neither Ashla or Bogan. But the thing is, seeing in shades of gray, it all happens on the light side. The only reason that duality exists, light side and dark side, is because George Lucas wanted to create a red versus blue. He wanted
Yeah.
to create a good versus bad. But if you're on the light, that doesn't mean you're a hippie or you see sunshine and rainbows all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the shades of gray. You can be morally gray and still be serving life. That's the only thing that the light side denotes is are you serving life or are you selfish and taking from life?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't need to be a Jedi to serve the light, and you don't need to be an extremely monastic, devoid of emotion person to serve the light. You could be Hondo serves the light, which is an odd thing to think about. Scoundrels serve the light, so long as they're not, murdering, going on a murder spree. But the thing about the Jedi is that they're not devoid of all of these things. It's they're just kind of steered away from it to help them stave off the temptations of the dark side, because as a force sensitive, the temptations are that much worse. So if you take someone that is not force sensitive and they get angry, that's not going to fester. Someone who is force sensitive is going to fester in that.
Well, it's interesting because, like Anakin's passion, love for Padme, and the fear that was accompanied with it of losing her is what led to all of these horrible events. And maybe Obi-Wan, there's love maybe stepped in where, he could have been a better figure and could have reported things, but didn't because he loved Anakin and whatever. But it's that same love that got Darth Vader to save his son and ultimately pull away from his boss. So there's something there where, it's just interesting. We don't have, there's so much to unpack with all that.
I will say attachment is one of those things that largely gets misunderstood as well. Because the attachments are inherent with the way that the Jedi Order is already structured. You have attachments with your master and your Padawan and your younglings. The only thing that the Jedi Order ever really teaches you is to be mindful of them and to let go, so that when you lose someone, it doesn't control you, and it doesn't kind of send you in a downward spiral where the dark side can grab onto you. So it's kind of like I like to say Ahsoka had done the most Jedi thing possible by leaving the Order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is an attachment.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's true. What do you two think of this?
Whew.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. Like, we have talked a lot about kind of this. We debated that take before, by just like, are Jedi toxic or not, or whatever, and all that stuff. And yeah, I agree a lot with what you're saying, Element 7. There is a desired middle. There's a desired balance. And I think especially Luke Skywalker in, the expanded universe, he definitely pulled more for a middle, well-balanced light side of the, force with his new Jedi Order. He recognized kind of the downfalls of strict legalism. And so I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. And to get back to your take, what was it? The Sith don't understand the Force?
Or the people that are fans of the Sith don't really understand.
I would say, I think I said the majority of people who are drawn to the Sith don't understand how the Force works.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, kind of like you were saying, also with the fighting, the verses, whatever, it depends on a certain given day, because on, Anakin's worst day, the appeal to the dark side of the Sith was much more than the light side of losing Padme or whatnot. And so, not to justify the Sith or anything and anything bad like that, but there's a complexity to seeing that attraction of like giving into your emotions or acknowledging that you can have emotions. And there's a book, The Lost Tribe of the Sith, expanded universe, and like it explores a lot of just how the Sith operate, and a lot of it is just being pessimistic about your own power, losing your own power, and yeah, it's very focused on self. It's like they're all focused on your big self-help book, and it's like self-help can only help you so much. It's like, let's be giving and generous, of our time and energy. So I think I agree with most of what you're saying, but yeah.
I'm gonna give him a Roger.
All right. Then the consensus is in.
Roger.
After that conversation,
I will say, a lot of times the Jedi are lumped in together.
Yeah.
With a particular take, but everyone's different.
Yeah.
Right? We have people like Qui-Gon and Quinlan Vos who are rogues in their thinking. But if you think that the Jedi are all like singular thinking and dogmatic and indoctrinated, when you have people like Count Dooku and Quinlan Vos and Qui-Gon that are coming out of that kind of education system thinking the way they do,
mm-hmm.
and you kind of realize, well, how is it churning out critical thinkers and people who disagree?
Yeah. Wow, this was a very packed hot take segment. And I love the progression of Super Smash Brothers that just fight each other and boom.
So, what is the gray area of life?
Like, wow, there's really no transition naturally to trivia time, but now we have trivia, so let's do it.
This is the way to trivia time!
It is trivia time. Okay, so in honor of our guest tonight, we have 2 questions. The first one is dedicated to a character that Element is just holds near and dear to his heart. So, the first of 2 questions: what did Yoda tell Luke Skywalker he would be? A, tired, B, powerful, C, strong, or D, afraid?
You will be.
That would be afraid.
I was going to say
supposed
strong.
to answer?
It's okay. You
Yes.
can answer.
You can answer,
I
yeah.
was going to say strong.
I don't know what I was gonna say because I was like, what scene are we talking about? And then you're like,
You will be.
I'll go with afraid. Element 7 knows what he's talking about.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything.
That was a perfect Mark Hamill impression. Wow.
All right. Yeah, the answer is afraid. So good job, everyone. Second question, a little bit easier. What attack pattern did Luke Skywalker order at the beginning of the Hoth ground battle? Was it A, attack pattern Alpha, B, attack pattern Delta, C, attack pattern Omega, or D, attack pattern Epsilon? I really feel like Hyperspace Heroes would know the answer to this one. I don't know
I'm
why.
going to say Delta.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue.
You're
Delta.
all correct. You are
Dang.
all correct.
Nice.
You know,
Apparently it
like
is
when you're
easier one.
flying, you got to do a quick delta
A quick
formation.
Delta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fly Delta, not United.
It's just not something that you remember from the movies, right? Oh, you
No.
remember that quote where he's like, attack pattern Epsilon? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's too
And then the
wonky.
one pilot's
Even
like,
for George Lucas.
sir, I don't remember that one. Can you walk me through that? Yeah, just plug in these coordinates, bear left.
Baby Yoda's just like, that's what he was saying in this one. Epsilon. Go find Bo. Well, this has been a fantastic episode of Duel of the Ranks. Longer than normal, but just like this episode of Mando, just packed with good stuff. Element, that includes you. Thanks so much for being on this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks. For the listeners who haven't heard of who you are, what you do, where can they check you out if they want to see more of yourself, Die in the Force, and everything else?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It was a blast. Love the conversations. If you guys want to check me out, I'm on TikTok at _element7_ gang. That's not part of the username. That's just what we represent here. You can also find me on YouTube along with my other half, Darth Chaco, on Diet in the Force. So that's youtube.com/Diet in the Force. And we're live every Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, where we talk about the latest in Star Wars, and we have a variety show-esque latter half of the show where we play Real Fans Would Know and Star Wars Pictionary. And Real Fans Would Know is basically the Star Wars version of Actually, and it's a fun game to
cool.
play.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, seriously, everyone that's listening, go check it out. You guys are yourself, Darchaka, the two things that you guys, all the stuff y'all put out is fantastic. We put out some pretty okay stuff to ourselves. And one of the things we put out this week was a bingo card. We've actually, for all the folks who haven't seen our Twitter page, go check it out. We are still running a Duel of the Ranks Mando bingo. And we had 2 numbers this week get called out, number 5 and 24. If you have those, you can cross them off. Number 5, Mando loses the Darksaber. He did, in fact, lose it.
Did.
In
For a
the
short time.
but he lost it. And number 24, we see a mythosaur. Those 2 events happen. Again, we have 44 things in our list, and we've now crossed out 4 of them. IG-11 came back to life, and Dank Ferric was said before the end of episode 2. So someone could have a bingo now.
Theoretically have a bingo.
Could theoretically have a bingo. Got 4 things. So if anyone else is interested in playing Mando bingo, feel free to send us a DM to our Twitter. You can go to dueltheranks.com. I think dueltheranks@gmail.com too. You can just email us if you want to jump in with us. It's a whole lot of fun. Winner gets a shirt. So it's going to be pretty exciting. If you want to find out where you can see more Duel of the Ranks content, Amanda, where can folks find us?
Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. We're posting content up there every once in a while, and we always love to hear your hot takes. We had a lot of great people, great new people join the chat this episode, and it's great to interact with you guys and see what you think of our hot takes too. So stay in touch.
Yep. And that's it. That's this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks. It's been a whole lot of fun. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. We have a special guest, Mandalorian, joining us next week.
Nice.
Hey, Kier.
Great takes that she's going to be sharing with us. Really excited about that as we break down the Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 19. See y'all then.